Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Snowbeck. Today we're going to be doing section 1.2, which we're going to review how to graph coordinates, and then we're also going to learn about points, lines, and planes. So think about an ordered pair, and if you had to graph an ordered pair. Well, an ordered pair is just a point on a coordinate plane, or a point on a graph. So let's write that down. Point on a coordinate plane. And do you remember what comes first on a coordinate? Is it the x or is it the y? If you thought x first and then y, you are correct. Like we said, the x coordinate is going to be your first number. And that x coordinate tells you to go left or right. If x is negative, you go left, and if x is positive, you go right. So remember that. The first number tells you to go left or right. The y coordinate, that's the second number in the coordinate, and that's going to tell you to go up or down. So if it's negative, you go down, and if it's positive, you go up. And we'll practice that in a minute. Okay, take a look at the graph here down, the coordinate plane here down on the bottom right. Where's the origin? If you are saying the origin is right here, you are correct. This is the origin, right where the x and the y-axis cross. The coordinate at the origin is 0, 0. So that's really important. The origin is at 0, 0. And then the x-axis is the one that is horizontal. You can see the x-axis right there. And then the y-axis is vertical. So the y-axis is this axis, and it goes up and down, or vertical. And then lastly, we have quadrants. And you can see a coordinate plane is divided into 4 quadrants. Guess where quadrant 1 is? Quadrant 1, and we'll use a Roman numeral 1, which looks like a capital I, is in the top right. I think it's because x and y numbers are positive in that quadrant. The x's are positive and the y's are positive because we go right and up. Quadrant 2 goes counterclockwise. Quadrant 3, continue going around. And quadrant 4, do you know what a Roman numeral 4 is? It's an IV. So we have 4 quadrants, and it's important to remember which ones are which, like where is quadrant 1 and that type of thing. All right, so let's take a minute and graph these points. M is at 2, 1. So the first number tells us left or right. If it's positive, we go right. So we're going to go right 2, and then the second number tells us up 1. So right here is M. And when I graph that, I put the letter M next to it so I remember which point that is, which coordinate that is. A is at negative 4, 3. So the negative 4 means, do I go left or right? Well, it's negative, so I'm going to go left. So I'm going to go left 4. And I go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I go up 3, 1, 2, 3. So A is going to be up here. Let's try another one. Let's try T. Why don't you guys go ahead, pause the video, graph T and H. So T would mean we go left or right 0, but we go down 3. So T should have been down here. And H means we go left 7, down 1. So again, when I count, I don't count where I start from. I count like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then down 1. So it'd be right here for H. And I can always go back and erase my little counting stuff. Next, we're going to talk about points, lines, and planes. And a point is basically just a dot. It's a location with neither shape nor size, and it's named with a capital letter. capital letter. An example of what that might look like is you might have a little dot with a letter by it, like this. And so we would call that point A, or A. So, for example, we would just call this A. Sometimes you'll see the word point written out in front of it, and that's okay. Next, let's talk about a line. So a line is made up of points, and there is exactly one line through any 2 points. When we name a line, we're going to use 2 capital letters, and we're going to put a double arrow above it. So an example might look like this. Go ahead and draw this. Next to each of those dots, let's put a capital letter. Let's put an A and a B. So pretend you saw this and you wanted to name this line. Well, we could call this line, for example, capital A, capital B, with a double arrow above it. That's the symbol for line. So this is line AB. However, there is a second way to name a line as well. Sometimes you'll see a little cursive letter, I call it a script letter, next to a line. Like here's a little cursive M. That is another way to name the line. So I could name that same line M. Some people say line M, but you really only need to write the letter. That letter names the whole line. Next, let's talk about a plane. So a plane is a flat surface, and it's made up of points that extend indefinitely in all directions. So it doesn't go just in 2 directions like a line, but it goes out in every direction. And it's named by 3 capital letters. So to draw a plane, it's kind of tricky. I usually just draw something that looks kind of like this, like a parallelogram. Just remember, it goes in every direction forever and ever. It's just kind of difficult to draw what that would look like. So we just draw a parallelogram, basically. Now, on this plane, let's put some dots, some points, okay? And next to these points, let's call them A, B, and C. Now, if I want to name a plane, instead of using, for a point we used 1 capital letter, for a line we use 2 capital letters, for a plane we're going to use 3 capital letters. So as an example, to name this plane, I could call it plane ABC. And for some reason, they do usually write the word plane in front. There really isn't a symbol for plane, and so they generally write the word in front. Now, of course, it can't just be that easy. Sometimes there's a second way to name a plane. Sometimes you'll see a little cursive letter, like let's make a cursive K, down in the corner. Now, there's not a point next to the K. There's no dot there. And so this K is naming the entire plane. And so the second way to name this plane is just using that capital letter. A couple other words that you need to know. The first one is collinear. So if you have points that are collinear, they lie on the same line. Collinear. You see the word line in there. So we'll say points that lie on the same line. Points that lie on the same line. Now, if points are coplanar, you can see here the word plane. And so points that are coplanar are points that lie on the same plane or the same flat surface. So you can kind of imagine points on the same line and points on the same flat surface. An intersection. Some of you have your driver's permit, right? Some of you might even have your licenses. If you come to an intersection, isn't it where 2 roads cross? So an intersection is the set of points that 2 or more figures have in common. Or in other words, where 2 objects overlap. Where 2 objects overlap, or where they cross. So take a look at this picture down below. See this right here? This one I'm circling in red. 2 lines intersect at A. Well, can you see where these 2 lines cross? They intersect right there at point P. So whenever you have two lines, if they intersect, they're going to intersect at a point. In this case, it's point P. What if you have two planes? Two planes will intersect at, okay, so take a look down here at this bottom picture. So see plane A and plane B, and they intersect at that line right here. That's where they're going to cross. Now remember, planes are supposed to go out forever and ever, and so they actually intersect along that whole line. So two planes intersect at a line. And in this case, they intersect at line R. So here's what your homework's going to look like. Number 5, find 2 ways to name the line containing point K. So I see point K right here. We have to name the line that contains that point, or in other words, the line that point K is on. There are many ways to name this line. Now remember, one way is we could use the cursive letter next to the line. So do you see the little A right here? We could use that. That is naming the line. So that's one way, is we could just call it A. But a second way is we can use 2 capital letters. So remember, you only want to pick 2, not all 3. So one way is I could name this line JK, but I have to put that double arrow above it. I could also pick 2 different points. I could pick K and L. So line KL is another way to name that same line, because K and L are both on that line. I could also use JL. So there are many ways. You can even reverse those letters, like you could do, instead of JK, you could do KJ. But normally a mathematician will write them alphabetically. But it's not really wrong if you mix them around. Number 6, find 2 ways to name the plane containing point L. Okay, so the plane is the whole flat surface. Do you see this cursive letter down at the bottom? That does not have a dot by it. That's a cursive B. So B is one way to name that plane. Now, a second way to name a plane is you use 3 letters that are on that plane, or 3 points that are on that plane, but they cannot be collinear. They cannot be in a straight line. So for instance, one way I could name this plane is I could call it plane, and I have to pick 3 points that aren't in a straight line. So I could go like JLM, plane JLM, because J, L, and M are not all in a straight line. I do not want to choose JKL because they are in a straight line, and other planes could go through that. Let's do one more. Another example that I could use to name this plane, I could call it plane KLM, because K, L, and M are not collinear. They're not in a straight line. So think for a minute. Number 7, what's another name for line A? If you said line BD, or if you reversed the letters and said line DB, that's great. Those are both correct. Number 8, name a line that intersects plane P. All right, so we're looking for a line that comes down and goes through the plane, intersects it. So see right here, line M, it's going to come down, and right here at D, it's going to hit the plane. And then it's going to go underneath. We're not going to see it for a while. That's why it's dotted. And then it's going to come out the bottom. So a line that intersects the plane could be M. M is going to hit the plane in 1 point. We could also call that line CD. Number 9, name 3 collinear points. Now remember, in collinear, I see the word line. So when we have to name 3 collinear points, we're looking for 3 points that are right in a straight line, right in a row. Take a look. Do you see 3 points that are in a straight line? I do. So here's A, B, and D. See how those guys are all in a straight line? So the way that I would answer this is I would just list them out. A, B, and D, I list them with commas like I'm making a list. Those guys are collinear. They're in a straight line, A, B, and D. Take a minute and please do numbers 10 and 11 on your own. Go ahead and pause the video. So for number 10, you could have lots of answers. Some possibilities, some example answers are M, line BC. Those are actually the same line. You could also have line AB or line BD or line AD. There's many different ways you could write a name of a line in that picture. If you were identifying a plane, however, I think there's only one way you could identify the flat surface. We're talking about this flat surface, and that would be with K. All right, let's try number 12. Name the intersection of line BD and line AC. That's a C. It's kind of tricky because it's written in a weird font. So notice here it does not have the double arrow above it. However, we could have written line BD like this and line AC like this. So we're looking for the intersection of those two lines. So find line BD. Here's B, here's D. So the line is right here. And remember, lines go forever in both directions. Okay, that's why the arrows are on them. Now find line AC. So here's A, here's C. So line AC is right here. Where is their intersection? Where do they cross? Well, they cross right there. That's where they overlap. So the answer is A, or point A. Next, let's try number 12B. So what is the intersection of K and AD? All right, well, K is the flat surface. It's the plane. So where does line AD hit it? Well, it comes down, and then right here at B, do you see how it switches to a dotted line right there? It goes dotted and then comes out the bottom. So that line AD hits the flat surface or the plane at point B. All right, and finally, our last question. What is the intersection of K and M? K is the flat surface. M is the line right here. Well, isn't line M right on the flat surface K? I think it is. So what part of it intersects with the plane? What part of the line touches the plane? Well, I think the whole line touches it. It's like laying right on it. So M, or in other words, the whole line intersects the plane. Tonight's homework is Unit 1, Practice 2. If you have questions or get stuck, please give me a message and I will get back to you. Have a good time. Bye.